The story begins with the high school president, Suzune Inukami, and the vice president, Kazuki Ryusen, walking into their classroom. They are the most popular students in the school for obvious reasons and are always together. After school that day, Suzune and Kazuki plan to sort some documents before heading home. Elsewhere at the school is another student, Ken Yusato. He is the complete opposite of Suzune and Kazuki. He is the least popular and sees himself as the most forgettable person. He is about to start heading home after saying goodbye to his classmates when he spots a bird's nest on the floor with the hatchlings screaming for help. He picks up the nest, and with the help of a ladder, he is able to place the nest back in a safe place. In reality, Ken has always hoped for a fantastical life, but accepts things as they are. It has started raining and he goes to the umbrella stand to find out that his umbrella is gone. However, there is still an umbrella at the stand, but he believes that he will only be causing the owner problems if he takes it. He decides to sit down and wait for the rain to subside. While sitting down, he wishes that he had magic to help him get home. Soon afterward, Ken realizes that he has been sitting for hours and the rain is not even showing signs of stopping. He scoffs out in surprise, and at that same moment, Suzune shows up. Suzune easily figures out that Ken doesn't have an umbrella, and this is the reason he is stuck in the school. Ken is shy to answer clearly and just says he will now be heading home. Suzune stops him and says it would be bad of her to send him just like that. Kazuki also shows up and volunteers to offer Ken his spare umbrella so he can use it to head out in the rain. Ken is surprised to hear this because he never thought of Kazuki as a nice guy. They haven't spoken to each other even though they are in the same class. Ken humbly accepts the umbrella and thanks the two for their help. Suzune then suggests that they all walk home together, which shocks Ken even more. It feels like he is in a dreamland. He wonders how the entire school will react when they find out that he walked home with the two most popular students. He is so lost in thought that he has no idea he is speaking out loud. Suzune and Kazuki are surprised to hear this, but Ken quickly brushes the matter aside. After this, they start heading home and Ken asks if they are dating. The two turn back to ask why he asked such a question, and he replies that people are always talking about this. The two appreciate that he asked them directly rather than gossiping behind their backs. Suzune tells Ken that she and Kazuki are not dating. They just spend a lot of time together because they are both on the student council. They continue their walk home, and Suzune asks Ken about his plans after school. Ken doesn't have a plan yet, and Suzune feels the same way, even thinking she is not where she is supposed to be. Suzune and Kazuki suddenly stop when they hear a bell sound. They are surprised that Ken is not hearing the sound like they are. The bell starts getting louder, but they have no idea where the ringing is coming from. Suddenly, a bright yellow magic circle opens beneath their feet. They wonder what the circle is for, but Ken says the circle is probably a gate to another world. Suzune appears delighted and wonders if there will be heroes and demons in the world where they are going. The force of the circle gets stronger, and they get sucked into the magical portal. Upon waking up, they find themselves in a throne room, a king, a priestess, and guards are staring down at them. Kazuki and Ken appear bothered by this, unlike Suzune, who is glad they have found themselves in another world. Kazuki speaks out loudly and demands to know what they have done to them and why they are there. One of the guards wants to shut him up for disrespecting the king, but the king stops him. The king then decides to introduce himself and talk to the trio in a calm manner. The man's name is Lloyd Vulgast Linger, and he is the king of Linger. He tells them that they have been summoned to the Linger kingdom to serve as heroes. Suzune hears this and is gripped with excitement because this is exactly what she wants. Lloyd tells them that they were attacked by the Demon King and his armies 2 years ago. The nation managed to repel the enemies, but the demon army has been growing even stronger since then. There is no telling when the demons will attack, and this is the reason they have summoned the heroes as a precaution. Kazuki stands up in anger and scolds the king for bringing them into this fantasy world without their consent. They have a family back home, and he is very sure that their families will be worried about them. He wants the king to send them back, but the king says the summoning only works one way. They can only be summoned but not returned. Kazuki hears this and gets even more mad. He tries taking a step closer to the king but is stopped by the guards. The king then stands up from his throne, walks toward the trio, and bows to them. He begs their forgiveness for the misunderstanding and assures them that he will find a way to send them back once they have defeated the Demon King and his army. The priestess and the guards in the room also bow to the trio in solidarity with their king. Upon hearing this, Suzune accepts the offer to be a hero but wonders why they are called heroes when they know nothing about themselves. The king then tells the priestess, Welsie, to explain things to them. Welsie explains that the summoning circle is designed to select the most capable individuals. She asks them if they heard bells ringing before being summoned, and they say yes. However, it dawns on them that Ken didn't hear the bells before they were summoned. Ken is thrown aback when he hears this and wonders if he was just dragged into their mess because he was with them. Welsie then says it is time for them to measure their magical abilities and the type of magic they have. She takes them to a room that contains a crystal ball capable of revealing their magical potential. Suzune is the first to step closer to the ball because she is the most excited about everything going on, while the other two are still trying to figure out their new life. Suzune touches the ball, and it turns yellow. Welsie explains that her affinity for magic is very strong, and that she possesses thunder magic. Suzune gets even more excited when she sees this. After this, Kazuki steps forward to touch the ball, and it turns white when he does so. Welsie says the type of magic he possesses is light magic, which can be used to dispel evil. She notes that this type of magic is quite rare. After this, Ken steps up to touch the ball and ascertain the type of magic he has. He wonders if he will have any any magical powers and, if he does, wants to use them to help Kazuki and Suzune. He touches it, and it turns green. The moment this happens, Welsie is left in total shock. Welsie immediately grabs Ken, drags him out of the room, and tells the two to wait inside. She takes Ken to the throne room where she tells the king that the ball turned green when Ken touched it. The king hears this and also screams in surprise. Welsie is about to reveal the type of magic Ken has when the king tells her not to. He talks about urgently getting Ken away from the palace. Ken starts to wonder why they want to take him somewhere else. He assumes they are acting this way because he is dangerous. He asks if anyone else has the same magic as him, and the king says yes. He mentions there is someone who possesses the same magic and is about to elaborate when a woman opens the door wide. Everyone in the throne room is gripped with fear when they see her. The lady's name is Rose, and the king assumes she was on break for the day. Rose says she has come to ask about the summoning ritual's success. The king quickly says the heroes are in the throne room and the summoning was successful. Rose introduces herself to Ken as the captain of the kingdom's rescue team. Just looking at Rose sends chills down Ken's spine, and he sees her as someone who terminates people rather than saves them. After the introduction, Rose says goodbye to the king and starts heading out. The king sighs with relief and tells Ken he'll have a room prepared later. Ken is curious about his magic and asks what it means for the ball to turn green. Rose is about to step out but immediately stops and turns back. The king is terrified as Rose walks toward Ken. She tells the king she will borrow the boy, but the king tells Welsie to get Ken away from Rose. Welsie follows the king's order and uses her magic to create a bubble around Ken. She throws him out of the room and palace, but Rose chases after him with her super speed. Ken is floating in the sky, but Rose jumps after him and knocks off the bubble with powerful punches. The king and his people run out to watch, but it's too late because Rose has already grabbed Ken. She tells the king she will take over Ken's training and will turn him into a full-fledged healing magic user. This reveals that the green color indicates Ken's affinity for healing magic. The king tries to explain Ken was just dragged into this, but she isn't interested. Later, Kazuki and Suzune learn about Ken's kidnapping. They worry he's in danger, but Welsie assures them he won't be killed. She explains Ken has been taken to the rescue team just beyond the castle. She says healing magic users are very rare, which is why Rose wants to train him, as she herself is a healing magic user. Suzune doesn't see a problem, but Welsie says Rose's methods are unorthodox and her subordinates are scary. Rose and Ken arrive at the rescue team house. Rose calls out her subordinates and tells them to welcome Ken. Ken is terrified when he sees them, noting they look absolutely crazy. The boys introduce themselves: Ken, Mill, Alec, Gomel, and Gerd. Rose tells the boys to treat Ken well and not scare him. She explains these boys aren't healing magic users but are her subordinates in training. Other healing magic users are working elsewhere. Rose informs Ken of her plans for tough training, shocking him by saying it starts the next day. She retires to her room, and Ken is told he'll share a room with Tong. That night, Ken lies in bed hoping everything will be fine. Rose is in her chambers, eagerly anticipating how things will turn out with this new healing magic user from another world. The following day, Ken wakes up, hoping it was all just a dream. Unfortunately, he realizes he is still in the fantasy world, and it feels completely real. He is still in the room when Tong comes to tell him he has visitors. He goes outside to find Kazuki and Suzune, both dressed in white heroes' uniforms. Kazuki expresses relief that Ken is okay, as they were worried when they heard he had been kidnapped. Ken thanks them for their concern, and says he is fine, but then remembers he is supposed to start training that day. This immediately dampens his mood when he recalls how intimidating Rose looks. Kazuki says he is determined to do his best in this fantasy world. Suzune and Kazuki encourage Ken to do his best too. They will also be starting their training that same day. After checking on him, they say goodbye and head back to the castle. As they leave, Ken thinks about the need to become stronger so he can help them with their duties. Just then, Rose opens the door, and Ken's fear subsides when he sees her. She tells him he is not in prison and is free to receive visitors, but only when he is not training. She throws a journal at him and instructs him to write his daily activities and training routines inside. Everything he feels should also be written in the journal. She then tells him to get ready because his training will start immediately after breakfast. After breakfast, Rose and Ken begin training. The first routine involves Ken holding his hand over his chest. After some time, she asks what he feels. He says he senses a warmth coming from his chest, and Rose explains that this is called mana. She tells him his next task will be trying to draw mana out of his body, but for now, he should just focus on sensing it. She gives him a book to read about the world's basic information. Ken is surprised, saying he can't read the local language. Rose tells him not to worry and just open the book. When he does, he realizes he can read it. Rose explains that heroes summoned always have translation magic cast on them. She shows him the Linger Nation on the map in the Demon Territory, noting that the Demon Territory is closer to Linger than other nations, which is why demons attack Linger first. She tells him to study the book and learn about nations, races, and other things, then leaves. The next day, Rose increases Ken's training by having him run around the field. She doesn't let him rest, even when his legs go numb. This continues on the third day, and when Ken's muscles get sore and he falls to the ground, Rose heals him and makes him continue running. Ken plans to vent his frustrations in his journal, seeing it as his only outlet. On the fourth day, Ken is integrated into the team's training, though he is far behind their level. The team runs past him as if he's standing still. Rose constantly criticizes him, but Ken doesn't have the energy to talk back, instead saving his complaints for his diary. On the sixth day, while running, Ken falls to the ground and notices a green light shining from his hand. He recognizes it as healing magic, but has no immediate plans to use it. From the seventh day, Rose becomes harsher than before. She starts kicking Ken around the training ground, making Ken assume she has seen everything he wrote about her in his diary. This treatment continues until the ninth day. Rose kicks Ken and he hits his head on a stone. At this moment, he unconsciously uses healing magic to heal himself. He realizes he can heal himself at intervals and considers healing magic a must-have. This new discovery makes him more serious about his training. By the 10th day, he can manifest healing magic whenever he wants and can now run for hours without getting tired. Whenever he wants to feel tired, he simply heals himself and continues running. He trains harder because of his desire to help Kazuki and Suzune when they need him. On the 11th day of training, Rose realizes Ken is getting used to running and changes his training schedule. He is now required to do push-ups. He can go a long time doing this because he just heals himself whenever his hands feel sore or numb. While training, Rose explains the importance of hard training. She tells Ken he needs to be able to run very fast in battle, faster than enemies, so he can save his comrades when necessary. The faster he can run, the more efficiently he can save his comrades. By the 12th day, Ken is already combining running with push-ups and does this easily. His body feels lighter, and he doesn't seem to feel anything during these training sessions. However, Rose adds weights to Ken's body the next day to make things harder. The weights feel really heavy, but he has no choice but to keep running. On the 14th day, his lunch goes missing, and he finds out Tong is the culprit. He gets angry and chases after him, forgetting about the weights and not feeling them as he pursues Tong. This helps him get used to the weights. On day 21, Kazuki, Suzune, the princess, Celia, and the head of the knights, Siglis, come to the rescue team base to check on Ken. They are surprised to find him lifting a large brick with Rose sitting on top. Ken talks back to Rose, making her angry. She adds another brick to what he's lifting. It feels very heavy at first, but he heals his body and immediately adapts to the enormous weight. Rose is impressed and says he's becoming her type of man. She plans to take him out sooner if he continues like this. Suzune, standing at a distance, is falling in love with Ken's muscles. Siglis approaches Rose and grabs her collar, scolding her for overworking Ken. He claims she is destroying Ken's bright future. Rose explains she is training Ken hard because she wants him to be her right-hand man and prove he can handle tough challenges. She is impressed by his hard work and ability to survive her training. Rose then tells Ken to take a break and catch up with his friends. Siglis tells Kazuki and Suzune to take Celia away while he talks with Rose. Ken and his friends walk away and sit under a tree to discuss. When they arrive, he learns that the girl with them is the princess named Celia. He immediately kneels and bows to her, but Celia tells him there's no need to be so formal. Suzune smiles and says Kazuki acted the same way the first time he saw Celia. Celia then reveals the pie she brought for them, and while they eat, Kazuki tells Ken about their experiences at the castle. He explains that Siglis has been teaching them sword skills, and Welsie has been managing magic training. The good thing is that Siglis and Welsie care about their well-being, allowing them to rest whenever they feel tired to avoid exhaustion. On the other hand, Rose is very brutal and doesn't mind stressing Ken. Ken is about to take another portion of food when Suzune takes the opportunity to peek at Ken's abs. She's already in love with Ken's muscles and abs, desperately wanting to touch them and struggling to control herself. Suzune snaps back to reality when Kazuki talks about something else. Ken then says he's adapted to life in this fantasy world. While he wanted to run away when he first arrived, he's now used to things. The training sessions have been fun, and he believes life isn't bad in this fantasy world. Suzune is impressed and says he's found his place. Ken sees it differently, claiming he's just stubborn enough not to give up. He knows Kazuki and Suzune will fight as heroes one day, and he wants to support them no matter what. Suzune blushes and says she can't wait for the day Ken will come to save her. Tong arrives to inform Ken that lunch is ready, which immediately triggers Ken because he remembers Tong eating his lunch before. He stands up looking dangerous, and Tong is shocked to see Ken hasn't forgotten. Ken charges at Tong, who decides to confront him. With Rose not around, Tong wants to deal with Ken. However, Ken seems tougher than expected and can hold his own in the fight. During this confrontation, Kazuki realizes Ken has accepted life in the fantasy world and considers it his new routine. He wants to get stronger and stands to leave for training. Suzune agrees, and Celia joins them to return to the castle together. That night, Ken reflects on Suzune's words and realizes she's right. His body has changed significantly, though he hadn't fully noticed. He's impressed with his new physique, but hopes his mental strength matches his physical development. The next day, Rose throws a bag at Ken and announces they're going out. Tong and others say, it's time for Ken to experience the outside world. Ken picks up the bag and follows Rose. At the city gate, Rose easily convinces the guard, with her appearance alone seeming to intimidate people. They reach the darkness of Linger Forest, filled with monsters. Rose tells Ken to enter enter and not return until he hunts a grand grizzly. Ken is shocked and protests. Grand grizzlies live at least 100 years and are at the top of the food chain, making them extremely powerful. Ken reminds Rose he's only been running and hasn't had fighting training. Rose dismisses his concerns, grabs him, and throws Ken into the forest to face his test and see if he'll survive. As Ken descends toward the ground, he hopes he will not die from such a long fall. However, he realizes that he actually has the power to keep himself alive. He activates his healing magic and falls through the bushes and trees, his injuries continuously healing with his magic. By doing this, he successfully makes it to the ground without a single injury on his body. He is now in the forest and has no choice but to do what Rose ordered him to do. He starts imagining ways he can take down the grand grizzly. He is contemplating this when a grand grizzly suddenly appears behind him. Caught off guard, Ken takes off running before he becomes bear dinner. The bear stays on his heels as he continues running for his life. All his training obviously pays off as he manages to put some distance between himself and the bear. He considers stopping and confronting the bear. Just as he's about to act on this thought, two more blue bears appear out of nowhere and join the grand grizzly. Without hesitation, Ken knows he's no match for the trio and starts running again. He sees an opening ahead and hears water sounds. Recognizing it, he picks up his pace. He breaks through the opening and finds himself facing a waterfall. The bears can't follow him and stay on the cliff's edge, making sure there's no sign of Ken before leaving. Ken follows the water's current and finally emerges when it's safe. He takes off his clothes, dries them, and takes shelter on a tree branch. Checking the backpack Rose gave him, he finds only one knife inside. There are food supplies, but nothing to start a fire. He thinks about his mission to defeat the Grand Bear and it seems impossible. However, he decides to count his first day of survival as a win. He marks a tree with his knife to record the day, then goes to sleep. The next day, he wakes up, gets dressed, picks up his knife, and heads out. He knows the best approach is to learn about his enemy. As he leaves his base, he marks trees along the way to track his route. Soon, he finds a tree with 3 scratches and immediately assumes bears made them, meaning they're nearby. While pondering this, he hears rustling in the bush behind him. He arms himself and turns to check the potential threat. A rabbit pops out, looking innocent. The rabbit approaches Ken, and when Ken asks if it's hurt, the rabbit answers yes. Surprised that the rabbit can understand him, Ken examines it and finds a cut on its leg. Out of compassion, Ken heals the rabbit. After healing the rabbit, Ken continues his journey, only to find the rabbit following him. He tries to tell it to stay away because he's tracking dangerous monsters, but the rabbit refuses. Eventually, Ken wonders if the rabbit knows the Grand Grizzly's location and asks. The rabbit confirms and begins leading Ken to the bear's den. There, Ken discovers the 2 blue bears are actually the Grand Grizzly's family. He observes the bears for a while and decides to take a water break. He sees a lake with suspicious-looking water but has no choice but to drink. After continuing to monitor the bears, Ken begins to writhe in severe pain. He realizes the water is causing his condition. He tries using healing magic, but it isn't working like it normally does on injuries. The magic is ineffective because it's poison, not a wound. However, the snake tricks him into fully approaching from the right and uses this to launch a surprise attack. The snake grabs Ken by the arm and he screams out in pain. Ken then remembers that he is holding his knife inside the snake's mouth. He pushes the knife upward to get the snake to release him. He breaks free but starts to get dizzy from the snake's venom. He has figured out how to get rid of poisoning from a previous incident with pond water. All he has to do is heal himself from the inside out, which is exactly what he does. He returns to his normal consciousness and goes after the snake again. This time, the bear supports him. The bear attacks the snake, giving Ken the chance to reach the snake's head. He delivers a fatal punch to the snake's head, and before it can react, Ken pulls out the spear in its right eye and pushes it into the snake's head. The snake writhes in pain and finally falls to the ground. Ken lies beside the snake, breathing heavily. He is happy to have defeated the snake, and the bear appears beside him. Ken tells the bear he is using all of his mana to neutralize the venom in his body, which means he cannot heal the bear meanwhile. Suddenly, the giant snake rises back up. Ken is already paralyzed and has no way to fight back. Even the bear tries to drag him away but is not strong enough. The snake charges toward them with full force, and Ken knows there is no escape. It dawns on him that Rose caused all of this. He screams out in pain, calling Rose some ridiculous names. Just as the snake is about to finish him off, Rose appears out of nowhere and lands a devastating blow to the snake's head, killing it. Ken is surprised to see Rose and wonders how she arrived at just the right time. She reveals that the rabbit told her everything. It turns out the rabbit is her pet named Kukuru, who only pretended to be injured to gain Ken's trust. Rose had been nearby, waiting for the right moment to step in. She tells Ken that the giant snake was created by the Demon Lord's army. The snake escaped during the first invasion and made the forest its home. Rose is surprised the snake was powerful enough to take down the Grand Grizzly, which is so strong that an elite group failed to defeat it. Ken is surprised and asks why she sent him to hunt such a beast. Rose explains that his mission was never to defeat the bear. She wanted to see how strong Ken has become and give him an opportunity to gain experience fighting an enemy stronger than himself. She is impressed with Ken and says she will keep him. Rose notices the baby bear has taken a liking to Ken and suggests the bear accompany them, carrying Ken on its back. They prepare to return home. Rose tells Ken she heard all the insults he hurled at her and promises to punish him. She declares she is impressed with Ken, revealing he passed the test. She informs him he is now worthy of staying beside her on the battlefield, as the 2 previous healers never reached his level of dedication. Rose tells Ken to prepare for what is coming, confident the demon army is ready to attack. Meanwhile, the Demon King and his army are preparing to attack Linger. Rose then tells Ken that he will accompany her on the battlefield. They will be on the front lines together, with Ken serving as her right-hand man. Ken asks about Tong and the others, and Rose reveals there are 2 other healers with different tasks. Rose urges Ken to steel himself before time runs out. Ken stares at his palm, wondering if he is truly capable of withstanding such challenges. In the Demon Kingdom, the Demon King discusses preparations with his commander, Amila. She confirms the army is ready and will begin their advance soon. The Demon King wants the second invasion to be much more successful than the first, but tells Amila she isn't expected to fight to the death. After their discussion, Amila leaves the throne room and encounters Hiriluk, known as the Demon Doctor. Hiriluk blushes, asking Amila to use his real name instead of his nickname. As Amila prepares to leave, Hiriluk stops her, revealing he has completed a prototype demon beast and wants her to see it. In his lab, Hiriluk shows Amila a giant snake similar to the one Ken and Rose defeated in the forest. He calls the serpent Baljanak, Prototype 72. Amila reminds him that Prototype 71 fled after being wounded by Siglis during the first invasion. Hiriluk assures her that Prototype 72 is much stronger. Amila expresses concern about the human healers who always save their wounded, particularly Rose, who seems to harbor a strong hatred for the Demon King. The Demon Doctor suggests Amila might want Rose for herself but notes she won't be joining the battle this time. Amila plans to send the Immortal Mage of Darkness, the Black Knight, to lead the troops. The next morning, Ken wakes up enjoying having a bed and mentions missing Tong's snoring. He gets fruit from the cafeteria and feeds it to the baby bear. Kukuru appears, and Ken reluctantly shares a fruit with him. He has already named the bear Blurin. Rose arrives and explains they can keep the bear as part of the rescue team, but he must earn his keep. Blurin hides fearfully. Rose demonstrates by having Ken carry Blurin on his back for battlefield simulation training, treating the bear like a wounded soldier that needs rescue. Ken begins running while the team attempts to ambush him. After 4 hours of continuous training, he collapses from exhaustion. Rose explains that humans experience fatigue from nervousness, fear, and impatience, and he has just discovered his battlefield endurance limit. All of these factors contribute to why he will run out of strength faster than normal. Ken asks Rose what he is supposed to do, and she tells him that building mental strength that doesn't crumble in the face of fear is the way out. She places her hand on Ken's head and heals him so he can get back on his feet. Rose instructs Ken to spend the entire afternoon running around the castle town once his mana is restored. Ken asks if he will be carrying Blurin the whole time, and she confirms yes. Soon after, Ken begins running around the town. He expects people to flee from him since he's carrying a bear on his back, but he's surprised when everyone remains exceptionally calm. He finds a woman selling fruits that Blurin likes and asks the fruit's name, which she says is Peffles. He then asks why everyone is so calm despite him carrying a monster. The woman explains that people know he's from the rescue team and are used to rescue team members doing unusual things, so nothing really scares them anymore. Having no money to buy fruit, Ken plans to purchase some later. However, the woman decides to give him one fruit as a souvenir, which both he and the bear appreciate. Ken thinks about visiting the castle since they're nearby. He wants to check on Suzune and Kazuki. While running, he passes a man in a lab coat who starts chasing him. The man quickly becomes exhausted and falls to the ground. Ken realizes the man was trying to get his attention and stops to help him, taking him somewhere safe to recover. The man thanks Ken for helping him and says he feels better. When Ken asks why he was trying to get his attention, the man says he simply wanted to greet his junior, leaving Ken confused. Realizing Rose hasn't told Ken everything, the man introduces himself as Orga Fleur, one of 2 other healers. He mentions he didn't know about newly summoned heroes. Orga is impressed that Ken can keep up with Rose's training methods, noting that he and his sister couldn't. His sister, who is 5 years younger, works with him running a clinic in the city where they heal citizens. When Ken asks why Orga collapsed earlier despite being a healer, Orga explains he's not good at healing himself and is only efficient at healing others. Their battlefield role is to stay in the rear while Tong's team brings wounded soldiers to them. Orga and his sister lack the strength to run around and heal people like the captain. Ken reveals that Rose wants him to join her on the front lines. Orga sees this positively, saying some soldiers die because no one is there to heal them, and it shows Rose's trust in Ken. Orga stands to return to the clinic before his sister starts looking for him. After saying goodbye, Ken leaves. Moments later, Orga's sister Ururu appears and scolds him for being out so long. Orga mentions he's met someone interesting that she'll soon learn about. Ken arrives at the castle gate and asks the guard if he can enter with the bear. The guard allows him, knowing he's not a threat as a rescue team member. This surprises Ken, who wonders why people trust Rose so much. Ken enters the castle and finds Suzune training with the troops. She happily takes a break when she sees him and sits down to look at the blue creature accompanying Ken. Ken explains how he acquired the bear during forest training. While Suzune is completely enamored with the bear, she asks to touch it, and Ken allows her. When she tries, the bear slaps her hand away, which only excites her more. Ken suggests calling the bear's name might help, but this backfires as the bear grabs Suzune's hand in its mouth and sucks on it before jumping to Ken's hand. Later, Ken notices blisters on Suzune's palm, which she attributes to intense sword training. He holds her hand and helps heal the blisters. Ken reveals he came to visit Suzune and Kazuki, but Suzune informs him that Kazuki is out of the kingdom with Siglis and some troops, gaining monster fighting experience. The scene shifts to the forest, where Kazuki, Siglis, and soldiers are preparing. Siglis believes the demon forces will be stronger this time, but is relieved to have Suzune and Kazuki's help help. Kazuki understands the people's dependence on them and promises to try his best. Suddenly, monsters ambush them from the forest, and they prepare to fight the approaching wolves. Back in the castle, Ken hopes Kazuki is okay, and Suzune reassures him they've only been gone a few days. She plans to enter the forest for experience training after Kazuki returns. As Ken leaves the castle, he reflects on Suzune and Kazuki's efforts and becomes determined to help them when needed. That night, after putting Blurrin to sleep, Ken encounters Rose. She asks about his training, and he explains he's becoming accustomed to it. Ken shares that he's found a way to overcome his fear. While he can't fight or kill, he's prepared to save his friends and anyone who needs help as a rescue team member. Rose is impressed and encourages him, marking the first time Ken truly feels like a rescue team member. The next morning, Rose wakes Ken and tells him the king has requested his presence. It's time for Suzune's experience training, and Ken will be her escort. On their way to the castle, Ken asks Rose why he is being asked to follow Suzune into the forest. Rose reveals that she had previously denied Ken's participation when Kazuki was heading into the forest, knowing he was exhausted from his own training. She explains that Ken's role is to heal Suzune and her party if they get injured during their 3-day, 2-night mission. At the castle, Suzune is excited to see Ken and surprised he'll be escorting them. She introduces him to 2 mission companions, Aruku, a knight who normally works as the castle gatekeeper, and Korin, a mage. Ken tries to remember where he recognizes Aruku from. Before they leave, Rose warns Suzune that Ken's magic has limits, and he can only heal her if she's still alive, advising her not to do anything rash. Suzune appreciates the advice, while Ken looks expectantly at Rose, who just scoffs at him before taking her leave. Later, Celia finds Kazuki training and tries to discourage him, but he claims to have recovered his strength overnight. Meanwhile, Ken and the group head toward the darkness of Linger. Ken remembers that this is where Blurrin's family died and wonders how the bear feels about returning. Blurrin is initially asleep on Ken's back. When he wakes, Suzune offers to carry him, but her attempt backfires when the bear's weight crushes her, forcing Ken to use his healing magic early in their journey. Soon after, the mage's staff signals an approaching threat. Bandits ambush the group, planning to rob them. Suzune and Ken aren't worried, with Suzune even glad to face them. She uses controlled electric magic to stun the bandits, while Ken offers to heal them afterward. Suddenly, the staff glows again, and fall boars emerge from the bushes, surprising the knight who notes their unusual presence in that area of the woods. The boars are behaving wildly, and one is charging at Suzune. Ken realizes she's in danger and quickly grabs her. The two are hit by the boar and sent flying into the sky. As they descend towards the ground, Suzune is frightened, but Ken tries to reassure her that she'll be okay. Ken maintains his healing magic as they crash through bushes and trees. They finally land in a river, and Suzune appears stunned. Ken recognizes the river and knows they will soon flow into a waterfall. He tells Suzune to brace herself for what's coming. He shields her as they plunge down the waterfall. Ken loses consciousness, and Suzune is forced to drag him out. She makes promises about saving him when he wakes up, then quickly pushes him away out of embarrassment. Suzune has a cut on her face, which Ken quickly heals. They soon realize they've lost their backpack during the fall. They have few resources to survive in the wilderness. Ken suggests finding shelter for the night so they can navigate better the next day. Suzune is unsure where they can sleep, and Ken proposes sleeping in the trees, having done so previously in this forest. Suzune admits she's never climbed trees, revealing she might come from a privileged background. After finding a comfortable spot, Suzune changes clothes. Later that evening, she sits by the river, dipping her hands in the water. She releases electricity to kill fish for their dinner. Ken is impressed and encourages her to explore her powers further, even asking her to create fire, which she does to impress him. That night in the cave, some venom monkeys appear. Ken knows about them from his reading. Suzune is fascinated and wants to touch them, despite Ken's warning about their poisonous nature. Ignoring his advice, she touches a monkey and gets bitten, immediately passing out. Ken rushes over and quickly heals her before the situation worsens. Back home, Kazuki learns from the king that his friends are missing. He wants to search for them, but Rose stops him. She assures him that Ken will keep Suzune safe, and that Ken isn't someone who dies easily. In the woods, Ken suggests they take turns sleeping to keep watch. As Ken tries to sleep, Suzune asks if he's awake, and then inquires about his feelings on being summoned to this world. Ken finds it a complex question. He wants to return home but also doesn't want to leave. Suzune, however, wants to stay. She sees this world as an escape from her previous life, feeling no attachment to her family or friends. Here, she feels free from the constraints that held her back before. To Suzune, this world represents the freedom she has been seeking. Ken begins to explain his initial feelings upon entering this world. He had always wanted an escape from his mundane life, and this world proves to be his way out. When he first arrived, he thought about becoming stronger so he wouldn't be a burden to Suzune and Kazuki. However, he has steeled his resolve to help his friends and anyone in need. They agree that saving the people of this world would be their best course of action. This is now their home and it requires their protection. After their discussion, they talk more about their relationship. Suzune realizes that Ken has always been interested in her but never approached her. Ken lies down to sleep to avoid further conversation, but Suzune is happy to have had a deeper interaction with him. The next morning, Ken and Suzune begin their journey out of the forest. As they navigate, Ken warns Suzune to be careful and prepared for potential attacks. Suddenly, they notice movement in the bush ahead. They become defensive but are relieved leave to find it's Blurren. Blurren excitedly jumps on Ken, and the knight accompanying him passes out upon seeing Suzune and Ken. Later, Aruku awakens and explains that Blurren had suddenly run off while they were searching. He believes Blurren must have caught Ken's scent. Ken heals Aruku's injury and praises his efforts. Blurren then catches another scent and starts moving. Ken learns that Blurren remembers his former home, the place where his parents were killed by a giant snake. Blurren indicates he's ready to move on and chooses to stay by Ken's side. Upon returning to the castle, the king welcomes Ken and Suzune. He offers his heartfelt apology for what they had to go through while they were in the forest. Ken says there is no need to apologize because he is already used to things like this. It then dawns on him that he is not supposed to reveal such crucial information. The king must not be aware that he is undergoing such strenuous training while he is with Rose. The king then asks him how training with the rescue team has been so far. He looks at Rose, who is also in the building, before answering the question. He simply tells the king that everything is going so well to avoid Rose's wrath and further intense training. After he has given this answer, he looks at Rose, and Rose smiles at him to let him know that she would have ended him if he answered wrongly. The king then says Suzune's field training will be rescheduled for later, and urges her and the others to rest while they are at it. Ken and Suzune are free to leave the throne room, but the minister, Sergio, tells Siglis and Rose to wait behind. This comes as a surprise to Ken, who starts to wonder why the two are asked to stay behind. Ken makes a joke out of this, and says there is the possibility that they are getting fired. Just then, they hear Kazuki and Celia calling them from behind. Kazuki catches up to them and reveals how worried he has been when he hears that the two are missing. Celia backs this up, and she tells them that Kazuki is ready to storm out of the castle so he can search for them. Ken tries to tell them how Suzune was poisoned by a venom monkey, but she quickly covers his mouth with cloth to avoid embarrassing her. Later on, Kazuki tells Ken that Rose really trusts him, and she is the reason why he didn't bother to enter the forest to search for them. After a brief discussion, Ken and Suzune leave while Celia and Kazuki are left behind. As the two depart, Celia talks about the bond between the trio. Kazuki says this is so because they are all from another world. Celia wonders if there is space for her in that bond. She then talks about how Kazuki is still addressing her formally, which she doesn't like. She wants Kazuki to start addressing her just as Suzune and the rest do. Kazuki accepts this and starts calling Celia how she wants to be called. Celia's face turns red from blushing after Kazuki makes this change. Now in the throne room, there is a meeting ongoing between the king, Rose, Sergio, and Siglis. The king is informed that the bandits who attacked Suzune in the bush were interrogated. They revealed that there were fewer monsters in the grasslands, which is quite unusual. The king then points out that there is only one explanation for this. This means the monsters residing in the grasslands have fled the area. For them to have done this, there is the possibility that they are running from something scary. Siglis concludes that the monsters were probably trying to escape the demon army. It is safe for them to assume that the demon army is already making their move, and it will be better not to underestimate them this time around. Siglis is sure that the demons will come at them with everything that they have to try and conquer the kingdom. The king puts this into consideration, and he tells the men to start preparing. He dismisses the men but tells Rose to stay behind. He then makes a special request from Rose. Rose already knows what the king wants from her, and she is ready to do it before he even opens his mouth to formally ask her. Rose already knows that the king wants her to head out and scout the demon army. She has the fastest legs in the kingdom, and this is the reason she is the most suitable for the task. Rose is about to leave when the king stops her and says he has something else to ask. He wants to know if she will reconsider leading the troops again, but Rose says she has no intention of doing this. Apparently, Rose's men once died while they are on the battlefield, and she blames herself for not being able to save them. It was during this encounter that she had the scar that claimed her right eye, and she believes that the scar is there to always remind her of what happened. The king tries to dissuade her from blaming herself, but she insists that she is to be blamed for what happened. She has come to the conclusion that once someone dies, there is nothing to be done for the person again. This is the reason Rose created the rescue team to help out on the battlefield. The king agrees that the rescue team really did help out during the last battle. The king then says Rose should be happy since she already achieved her dream, but Rose is not satisfied yet. The other reason she created the team is to find a subordinate who will not die. The king is shocked to hear this, and says it is quite impossible for someone not to die. Rose replies that this is exactly why she designed such a gruesome training to try and find someone who will endure and survive the training routine. The king immediately realizes she is talking about Ken. Rose explains to the king that Ken has been exceptional in everything he does. He doesn't like to give up, and his will to live is strong too. In addition to this, he has maintained a rebellious attitude toward her, and this is one of the reasons that she wants him. She has made the decision to make Ken the ideal healer. Rose soon realizes that she has digressed from the main topic, and she apologizes for this. She bows to the king and says it is time for her to head out for her patrol. Later that night, Ken is informed by Alec that Rose left a letter behind for him. No one knows where Rose is, but she left a letter addressed to Ken. Ken picks up the letter to find out that it is a task from Rose. There is another sealed letter there which she wants him to deliver to someone. She had already drawn the map of where he was going to deliver the letter. All he has to do is to follow the map and get the letter to where it should be. Elsewhere, the demon army is busy building a bridge that will connect them to the human kingdom. The storm is not helping and is making things a bit slow for them. While they are in the middle of this, Amila realizes that the Black Knight holds little or no regard for her even though she is his superior. She tries to assert her dominance, but the Black Knight just makes fun of her and leaves. He tells her to call on him when they are done building the bridge. The demon doctor shows up to make fun of Amila for her inability to control the Black Knight. Amila reveals that the construction of the bridge will soon be done so that they can finally begin the full invasion of the Linger Kingdom. Just then, the foot soldiers find out that there is someone on the other side. Amila doesn't seem concerned because she knows that the invasion will already be underway before the scout can even report back. Just then, a log of wood comes flying at them and it rips the bridge apart. Amila takes a good look at the person who threw the log and she realizes that it is none other than Rose. She realizes that it is her sworn nemesis and she screams out from the frustration she is feeling inside. With this, Rose believes that she has been able to delay the invasion for a couple more days and give the kingdom more time to prepare. The following day, Ken gets down to the mission that Rose left behind for him. He starts walking around the city, using the map to try and track down the house where he is supposed to deliver the letter. He has been walking around for quite some minutes, and he knows that the situation is already getting weird. He soon comes to the store of the woman selling fruits, and the woman tells him that there is fresh produce if he wants. While they are discussing, there is a girl who is watching Ken from her hiding place. Moments later, Ken finally makes it to the location on the map. He makes his presence unknown before entering the house. He comes across a girl who turns out to be Orga's sister, Ururu. Ururu sees the uniform that Ken is putting on, and she immediately figures out that he is from the rescue team. She tries to remember the name that her brother told her, but she finds it hard to do so until Ken reminds her by himself. She properly introduces herself to Ken, and it is during this introduction that Ururu finds out that she is a year older than Ken. It then dawns on Ken that he is in the clinic where Orga was talking about the first time that they met. Ururu says her brother is currently examining a patient, and she suggests he come and watch how it plays out. They arrive at the examination room, but Ururu insists they watch from the doorway because her brother loses concentration easily. Ken observes closely as Orga works. He notices that Orga's mana color is quite different from his own. Orga heals a boy right in front of them, and the boy points out there are two people watching. Orga is surprised to see Ken at the clinic, and Ken explains his mission to deliver the letter. Ururu and Ken chat about the rescue team, while Orga breaks the seal and reads the letter. After reading it, he looks worried, but quickly masks his expression to prevent them from understanding the letter's contents. Ururu mentions how enthusiastic Rose was when training her and her brother, but they couldn't keep up with her methods. Suddenly, a guy rushes in. He tells Orga that his help is needed for his friend who fell from a roof while working, with two others also injured. Orga, Ururu, and Ken immediately rush to the scene. The healers begin treating the injured people one by one. This is Ken's first time healing someone outside the rescue team or Suzune. He remembers this type of injury is what he'll face on the battlefield and starts feeling nervous, but Orga calms him down. Orga assures him there's no difference from what he's done before, telling him he has the power to heal the person in front of him. Hearing this, Ken believes in himself and completes the healing. After finishing, they leave the scene. Orga tells Ken he's welcome to visit anytime and can help at the clinic, as it's challenging for the two of them to handle everything alone. Ken promises to return and says goodbye. After he leaves, Orga tells his sister that Rose's letter warns of an impending war. The demon army will soon invade, and Rose wants them prepared. Both Ken and Ururu lack combat experience, making this their first battlefield. Their belief in their abilities will be their only help, Orga says. Meanwhile, Ken stops at a fruit stall to buy Blurin's favorite fruit. The girl who's been watching him appears, approaching Ken and saying he's the only one who can change the upcoming future. She touches his hand, and Ken sees a vision of a Black Knight standing on heroes and human troops' corpses. He returns to reality, breathing heavily from the vision. The girl tells him he'll pay the debt for a huge favor and runs away. After the girl leaves, Ken recovers from his shock. He tries to find the girl to learn more about what she showed him. He refuses to believe that Kazuki and Suzune will die in the upcoming wars. He asks a guard if he's seen the girl, but the guard denies seeing anyone matching her description. While Ken is searching, Rose appears behind him. The guard instantly vanishes when he sees Rose. Ken asks where she's been, and Rose explains she was scouting outside the kingdom. She reveals the enemy is attempting to build a bridge to cross the river into the kingdom, but she has delayed its construction, buying them a few days to prepare. Ken teases Rose about her understanding of scouting, which earns him a face squeeze until he screams in pain. They leave the city and head home. Ken tells Rose about the fox girl he's searching for. Rose knows who the girl is and is surprised she's only 12, having escaped kidnappers on her way to the kingdom. Ken asks why kidnappers would target her. Rose explains that beastskins are valuable because some have special magic abilities. When Ken asks if beast people can create strange illusions, Rose explains that some rare beastkins are known as oracles of time, who can see the future. These individuals are highly protected among beast people. Rose demands to know why Ken is interested, and he claims mere curiosity, secretly wondering if the girl is one of these rare individuals. At the junction to their home, Rose goes to the castle to discuss her findings with the king. The king thanks her for delaying the enemy's invasion and plans to inform the entire nation the next day. He instructs Sergio to prepare and tells Siglis to inform inform Kazuki and Suzune that night. Kazuki and Suzune go to the throne room, encountering Celia along the way. After an awkward interaction, they continue their journey. Suzune asks about Kazuki's relationship with Celia, but Kazuki dismisses it. Later that night, Ken struggles to sleep, worried about the girl's warning. He notices 3 light bubbles outside and finds Kazuki standing near the house. Kazuki reveals he's worried about the upcoming war. He shares his fear of fighting, recalling his previous encounters with monsters and feeling overwhelmed by the expectations of the world's people who depend on him. Ken interrupts to say he's more impressed that Kazuki is under pressure. He believes it's actually good that Kazuki is putting himself first for once. You don't need to live up to others' expectations, he says. Kazuki asks Ken about his own decision, and Ken states he has made up his mind to fight the demon army. He's very scared but resolute. Kazuki is surprised, noting Ken could die in a war he was accidentally pulled into, but Ken doesn't seem concerned. Ken discusses the factors that led to his decision to go to war, adding that Kazuki is among those reasons, which deeply affects Kazuki. Hearing this, Kazuki decides he's ready to fight alongside Ken. He's unsure if he can be a hero, but he's certain he can fight to protect his friends, including Ken. This surprises Ken, who asks why Kazuki has decided to fight. Kazuki says Ken's fighting makes it right for him to do the same. He knows he'll feel better with Ken and Suzune by his side. They make a fist bump, agreeing to protect the kingdom and its people, and say farewell with smiles. After Kazuki leaves, Ken turns to find Suzune behind him, shocking him. She heard their entire conversation. Suzune wants to discuss something, but Ken believes she followed Kazuki out of worry. He admits he still doesn't want Kazuki to fight, despite convincing him to do so. Suzune asks if he doesn't want her to fight either, and he agrees, though he sees her situation differently since she's committed to staying in this world. Suzune agrees and decides it's time to leave, noting tomorrow will be hectic. The next day, the king addresses the nation about the impending demon army invasion. They plan to intercept the demons in the grasslands, expecting them to be stronger than before. However, the king is confident in their army's strength, especially with 2 heroes added to their ranks. The rescue team will support them, carrying and healing wounded soldiers. Despite the challenging odds, the king believes the kingdom of Linger will be victorious, trusting in their fearless troops. Later, Celia is informed that Kazuki wants to see her. He tells her he'll be leaving with the troops the next day. Celia's eyes well up, but she promises to pray earnestly for their victory. Kazuki thanks her and says goodbye. Celia watches him walk away in his new armor and cape. At the rescue team base, Ururu is having fun with Blurrin and Kukuru. She tries touching the bear, but he keeps slapping her hand away. She soon becomes playful with the bear and rabbit. Ken leaves her to do her thing while he talks with her brother. Orga then says Ururu has always been spirited, but she is currently nervous and only trying to hide it. This is the reason she is busy playing with the bear and rabbit to distract herself from her feelings. This will be her first battle, and she is trying to take her mind off the potential battle outcomes. Ken and Orga are still in the middle of this conversation when Tong shows up to tell Ken that Rose wants to see him in her room. This is a shock to Ken, as he has never been called to Rose's room before today. He starts to wonder what Rose has planned for him. Inevitably, his intrusive thoughts take over, but Tong gets him back to his senses and says the boss is waiting for him. He gets to Rose's room and she asks him about their previously discussed battle plan. Ken says Rose already told him that he would be on the front lines with her, healing the troops. Rose then tells him that they will not be on the front lines when the war begins. They will be at the rear, where Tong and the others will be bringing the wounded soldiers to them. There's no point staying on the front lines from the start, since there won't be any soldiers wounded yet. The front lines will be chaotic, making them an easy target for enemies who will want to take out their first squad. Rose then adds that Ken needs to be careful about whom he heals on the battlefield. Ken assumes she means not to heal the enemy, but Rose corrects him, talking about soldiers with minor injuries. He should try to distinguish between soldiers who are minimally injured but can still fight, so he won't get in their way. Essentially, Rose wants Ken's decision-making to be top-notch when he's out there. Afterward, she hands Ken a box and tells him to open it. He does, finding a neatly wrapped uniform inside. Rose explains that the uniform is mainly for the rescue team and is designed to stand out on the battlefield. She urges Ken to try it on, and when he does, it looks good on him. Rose moves closer to Ken and becomes even more serious. She lets him know that healers are not immortal, which is why he needs to be careful in the field. She tells him not to sacrifice himself and not make rash decisions. Ken agrees and tells her that he will protect himself while also protecting others. After this pep talk, Ken packs the uniform back into the box and leaves the room. As he walked away, he spoke about his determination to protect Kazuki and Suzune, regardless of what he saw in the vision. Soon afterward, Ken and the rest of the healing team begin their journey to find and intercept the demons. Ururu is already complaining about how far they have traveled, and her brother reminds her that they need to get very far from the nation to fight the demons. Ken then asks Rose about the demons' physiology. Rose explains that demons are demi-humans with twisted horns on their heads. They might look like humans, but demons are physically stronger and have more mana than humans. In short, they surpass humans, not just their their officers, but their regular soldiers as well. Rose asks Ken if he is scared, but he says no. He jokes about knowing someone scarier, obviously referring to Rose. Ken talks about the hellish training he has undergone under Rose, and says this has molded him. Rose looks at him with a side eye, and he raises his hands in fear that she might strike him. However, Rose does nothing, as she is lost in thought. She remembers something that makes her place her hand on her right eye. A flashback scene goes back to 5 years earlier when Rose still has both her eyes. She was the commander of the Linger Knights, and is seen entering the throne room. The king informs her and Siglis that there have been demon sightings in the grasslands. While there have been no casualties so far, the king warns they cannot be complacent. To ensure safety, he orders guards to be assigned to merchants during travel. He knows the demons are not to be underestimated due to their strength and urges his people to be careful. After the briefing, Rose leaves the throne room. Siglis approaches her to discuss the demons and their potential mobilization. He is worried they have gathered enough strength to invade. Rose sees this as a possibility, and they plan to gather their troops in preparation for the attack. After their discussion, they part ways. Rose's deputy commander, All, shows up and tries to talk to her, but Rose is lost in thought about preparing for the demons. All continues calling to her boss, forcing Rose to knock her on the head to make her stop. Even then, All doesn't back off and reveals she is aware of the demons. Because of this, Rose hits her again, scolding her for always eavesdropping on classified meetings. All cries out, complaining that her boss is too hard on her. They leave the castle together and head to their base. All talks about defeating the enemies, but Rose berates her for being too confident. She says it is dangerous to underestimate enemies. When All tries to defend herself, Rose decides she will oversee their training that afternoon. All screams in pain, knowing she has put herself and the squad in trouble. She tries to dissuade Rose by reminding her of her battalion commander duties, but Rose's mind is made up. They return home and are welcomed by the knights. The knights notice something is wrong with All and ask her about it, but she brushes off their questions. Rose reveals why the deputy is acting this way by mentioning she will be in charge of training. The knights scream, knowing All has done something to provoke the commander. They gang up on her and beat her thoroughly. She begs Rose to make them stop, but Rose says it is not her concern. A week later, the king calls Rose to inform her that demons are attacking monsters in the human nation. The attacks have become successive, forcing the king to order Rose to investigate and use force if necessary. After receiving this order, Rose mobilizes her knights and tells them they will move out in the morning. All tries to motivate the team but ends up receiving a beating from them. They blame her for their recent hardships. Rose tells Kukuru he will stay home because she doesn't want him to get hurt. His ability to track monsters would have been valuable, but Rose is not ready to put him in harm's way. The team becomes excited when they hear Rose will join the mission, knowing they will fight at their best with their boss there to heal and motivate them. The following day, the team gets down to business. They mount their horses and head into the forest. By nightfall, they set up camp. They've explored some of the forest, but found nothing. Someone suggests checking the west side, but they know it's the most dangerous area. All agrees and mentions a feeling about the west side. The team decides to go along with this since All is the deputy director. Once settled, All tells everyone it's time to sleep, with team members taking turns watching the fire. Rose volunteers for the first watch while the others rest. Soon after, Rose speaks to All, who she knows is awake. Caught, All decides to stand and discuss what's on her mind. She asks Rose why she was chosen as deputy commander, feeling unqualified and believing she's just been doing administrative tasks like writing reports and requesting equipment. Rose assures her she's doing a good job and isn't one to complain. She even plans to eventually hand over command to All, which shocks her. Rose explains that since she's leading the battalion, she'll need All to eventually lead the unit. All is hesitant, worried the team won't accept her. All describes herself as stubborn, never changing her mind about what she believes is right, even if she stands alone. She's used to silencing those who disagree. But Rose changed her perspective through persistence, always defeating her in arguments. Despite losing, All kept fighting back to avoid being defeated. She's amazed that Rose is the first person who consistently stands by her and challenges her. While Rose might be annoying, she's the only one who truly understands the unit, which is why All wants her to remain commander. Rose responds by playfully knocking All on the head. She scolds All for thinking she would choose an unworthy successor. Rose emphasizes that she carefully selected All with confidence. All is surprised and curious about what Rose sees in her. Rose explains that she admires All's unwavering determination. As long as All keeps moving forward, others will follow. Rose also stresses the importance of accepting change, noting that leadership is temporary. All understands and agrees with everything Rose has said. Rose then goes to sleep, with All taking the next watch. Rose knows the rest of the squad is still awake and acknowledges this. The team members reassure All that they always have her back, and while they might not always show it, they trust and respect her. The next day, the squad discovers claw marks on some trees. They recognize these marks as belonging to a glow wolf. There are also footprints and red liquid on the ground. This confirms to them that demons are indeed hunting monsters, but they wonder what the demon's motivation is. Some believe believe they are doing this for fun, but all knows there are deeper reasons behind it. Suddenly, they hear a roaring sound in the distance and the squad moves toward the noise. They hide behind some bushes and observe demons taking down monsters and loading them into a carriage. The demons have a leader with them who appears to be in charge. The leader detects the human scent and makes it clear he is aware of their presence. Rose realizes there's no point in hiding and reveals herself. The rest of the squad follows her lead. She steps out from the bush but tells all and the others to stay back initially. Rose asks the leader why they are hunting monsters, and he responds that there is a reason, but he's not willing to share. She then asks what he intends to do, suggesting they can still avoid conflict. The demon leader, confident in his abilities, tells Rose he cannot let her go since she has already seen them. He plans to eliminate Rose and her squad. Upon hearing this, All steps out to support her boss. Rose instructs All to take charge of the team since she will be occupied fighting the demon leader. The demon leader and Rose charge at each other, and he activates a wind magic attack directed at Rose. Surprisingly, Rose is faster than the attack and reaches him before he can react. He manages to dodge her initial strike and is about to comment on her strength when Rose launches another attack. She hits him, sending him crashing into the forest. Rose pursues him, and realizing he's trying to escape, uproots a tree and throws it in front of him to block his path. She reinforces this by throwing more trees. She grabs one of the trees and uses it to pin him down. The demon breaks free and attacks Rose with a powerful wind spell, expecting it to stop her, but she breaks free thanks to her healing abilities. He then realizes Rose is a healer with impressive physical strength that makes her an effective close combat fighter. The demon decides to get serious, but first introduces himself. His name is Nero Argents, and he asks for her name, which Rose provides. A red portal opens in the ground, and Nero's staff emerges. He threatens to terminate her, but Rose confidently promises to beat him before he can do so. With that, they charge at each other with full intensity. The battle between the two groups continues. Rose's unit is ready to show the demons that they're not easy to beat. Rose notices that Nero's demon sword is cursed, which is why she can't let the possessed sword touch or cut her. She dodges his attack and launches a counterattack that sends him to the floor. Rose taunts the demon, telling him to stand up because she's pretty sure he still has the strength to fight. Nero admits that Rose and her unit are quite skilled. However, he's not ready to be defeated because they're working towards the emergence of the demon lord. With this, Nero emits a powerful control spell from his body. This is to show Rose that he and his squad are ready to become sacrificial lambs if it takes their lord to be reborn. Rose's unit notices something strange about the demons. The demons start acting as if their lives mean nothing, and Rose suspects that Nero has done something to the squad. She goes after him, aiming to end him before anything he does becomes fruitful. One of the demons holding Naruka plunges her head to death while also dying with her. Nero has basically conditioned his squad to die alongside the humans if that is what it takes. This effect continues and Rose starts to lose her unit one by one. Rose loses her temper and dashes toward Nero like a rabid dog. This only gives Nero the absolute chance to calculate her movements, and he delivers a cut to her right eye. Rose tries healing the wound, but can't because the sword is cursed. Even with half her vision, Rose still remains standing, trying to take down Nero with whatever she has left. Nero is about to finish the job when All jumps in between the attack and gets deeply cut instead of Rose. Rose falls to the ground, realizing that she has lost her entire unit. This is a unit that has always believed in her. Nero considers this the right time to talk trash about Rose and her unit, but this only makes her mad. Rose holds onto his sword like it's nothing. She delivers a punch to his stomach to get him on his knees. She is intent on teaching him a big lesson. She punches Nero repeatedly, and even when Nero tries fighting back, he couldn't. Rose is in termination mode, and Nero has no chance against her. She throws him around like he's a useless piece of trash. She throws him to a tree and impales him with his own sword. She is starting to slow down, but wants to finish the job. She is getting closer to Nero when a young Amila emerges from the woods. She aims to save Nero, leaving Rose shocked that someone is still willing to save him even though he's a pain in the ass. Amila pulls out the sword, and plot armor covers the girl as Rose watches her drag away the guy responsible for the annihilation of her squad. Once the two are gone, Rose falls to her knees but hears All's groans and crawls over to her. She tries healing her, but the cut is too deep and was made with a cursed sword. Before dying, All tells Rose to remain the commander they know her as. All dies, and Rose lets out a loud, painful scream as she looks around at her comrades' bodies. Upon returning to the castle, Rose gives the king her report and then tells him to remove her as battalion commander. As if that's not enough, she wants the king to strip her of her knighthood because she no longer considers herself a knight. While walking through the street, Rose runs into Josh's parents, who thank her for allowing Josh to serve in her unit. They know the impact she had on Josh, who was an annoying delinquent before joining her squad. They're not blaming her for Josh's death, but thanking her for the opportunity she gave their son. 1 month later, Siglis comes to check on Rose because she hasn't left her base since the incident. Siglis is there to encourage her and get her out of her gloomy state. He notices her right eye is already healing, meaning the curse was temporary. He wonders why Rose hasn't healed her eye since the curse has been lifted. After Siglis leaves, Rose claims she's leaving the injured eye, as is to remind her of what happened to her unit. That might be the reason, or she might just like the idea of wearing an eye patch. Rose finally decides not to waste the second chance All gave her. She sits sits in her living room, reflecting on her life when images of her deceased unit appear. All and the others tease her for being down and urge her to cheer up. They remind her that she's known as the joyful one and don't want that to change. They tell her to move forward, accepting that things don't stay the same. Remembering All's advice to remain true to herself and the beautiful memories with her team, Rose finally pulls herself together. This is when she decides to create a unit focused on saving lives in preparation for upcoming battles. She also needs someone like herself. In the present, she tells Ken she's happy to have found him. Ken tries to smile, but Rose hits him in the stomach because she can't stand seeing him laugh or smile. She tells Ken she's counting on him to be with her on the battlefield, confident he won't die. Ken grins at the compliment, but Rose hits him hard as usual. Meanwhile, the poor have suffered greatly at the hands of this cruel beach. The demons have completed their bridge construction, and the armored knight is eager to battle the humans. Despite Amila's warnings to be cautious, the knight doesn't care at all. The next morning, Ken leaves the tent early to survey the surroundings and remind himself why he has to fight these annoying enemies while trying to save the seemingly clueless soldiers. He's in the middle of this when Suzune suddenly appears, as if the pervert has been waiting for her favorite plaything to show up. Suzune starts telling Ken about the qualities of her shining armor. Ken is completely uninterested in this boring talk, but Suzune is stubborn. As she gets closer, Ken starts praying for Kazuki to rescue him. His prayers are answered when Kazuki appears and takes Suzune away, because Siglis is already calling for them. Moments later, Siglis mobilizes the army and assigns everyone their duties. Suzune and Kazuki will lead the vanguard, aiming to break the enemy's formation and potentially capture the enemy commander. Kazuki notices Suzune seems troubled and tries to calm her down. Shortly after, enemy forces appear directly in front of them. The mages and heroes launch a long-range attack, only to be shocked when they realize they've hit an illusion. The real enemies are approaching from the southwest and have already closed in. The battle begins, and Rose instructs Tong, Alec, Mill, Gommel, and Gerd to retrieve wounded soldiers for healing. Orga and Ururu will tend to the wounded in the tent, with Aruku protecting them. Rose and Ken will enter the battlefield when things get serious. Soon, wounded soldiers start arriving. Ken's hands shake like a leaf as he tries to heal a soldier, realizing this is real war, not the video games from his world. The wounded soldier mentions a giant snake attacking the battlefield, making Ken wonder if it's related to the snake he previously defeated. He pushes the thought aside and continues healing. On the battlefield, a knight in dark armor is stabbed from behind by a human soldier, but seems unconcerned. Without moving, the soldier is injured and falls. Just as the knight is about to finish the soldier, a healer arrives just in time to save him. The knight is impressed and craves more action, seeing lightning in the distance as a promising sign of excitement. As the battle progresses, Rose decides it's time for her and Ken to join. She asks if he's ready, and he agrees. Aruku assures Rose he'll protect the healers. Ken experiences a troubling vision that makes him pause, but he tells Rose it's nothing. She understands he wants to save people, not kill, and offers some final advice before they separate. Ken saves a human soldier about to be killed by a demon, then helps other soldiers retreat to the camp. Elsewhere, Suzune fights hard but seems pressured. Kazuki notices her struggle, but she puts on a brave smile to hide her true feelings. The battle intensifies with the dark armored knight's arrival. Soldiers charge and attack him, but find themselves in pain when their strikes have no effect. Suzune quickly realizes the knight's magical power, and Kazuki confirms it's a reflect magic that returns damage to the attacker. The knight is impressed that Suzune was the first to understand his skill. Ken is carrying out his duties when he starts feeling a stubborn migraine that refuses to go away. He tries to heal himself, but nothing works. He starts wondering if something bad has happened to Suzune and Kazuki. He is in so much pain, leaving him vulnerable to a demon soldier, but one of the human soldiers he saved moments ago is there to rescue him. He then asks the soldier where the heroes are. The soldier lets him know that they are fighting in the center of the battlefield. Continuing with the battle against the knight, Suzune realizes that they are at a great disadvantage because they can't attack. However, Suzune has a plan. She tells Kazuki about it, and together, they charge toward the knight. Suzune blocks the knight's vision with a perfect dust cloud. Once this is achieved, they attack the knight in dark armor together. However, they soon realize that it is useless when the attack comes back to hit them. Just then, Suzune notices damage on the knight's back that hasn't been reflected. Another idea immediately comes to her mind, and she tells Kazuki that they should launch another attack. This time, Suzune activates her super speed and runs around the knight while Kazuki blocks the enemy's vision with a ball of light. Before the knight knows what is happening, Suzune has pushed her sword into his throat from behind. Suzune believes that the knight cannot reflect attacks they do not see coming. In addition, she has taken away the enemy's ability to say the word reflect. She then urges Kazuki to attack since they have a chance now. However, they learn the hard way that the knight was just toying with them. The knight reflects Suzune's attack, causing a wound to open on her neck. Kazuki also gets impaled by the knight while jumping towards him. The knight makes fun of them, telling Suzune that they intentionally left the wound on their back without reflecting it to mislead them. Moreover, he doesn't need his voice to reflect an attack. All he needs is the will and thought to do so, and it is considered done. The knight proudly boasts that there is nothing or no one in this world who can stop them. Kazuki is already lying half dead on the floor while Suzune is gradually joining him. Ken is on his his way to them, but there is a possibility that he will be too late to reach his friends. As Suzune and Kazuki slowly lose their life force, Suzune remembers the first day she approached Ken at school. She considers herself lucky to have met Ken that day. She was happy to have been summoned to this world, and that Ken, who was supposed to be the most useless among them, knows exactly what he needs to do. The human soldiers look on in total contempt as they see the heroes lying nearly dead. The demons are celebrating because the Black Knight seems unstoppable. The Black Knight raises their sword to finish what they started. However, Ken rushes toward them at blinding speed. Determined that his friends won't die, he delivers a devastating blow that sends the knight flying while groaning in pain. Ken is relieved to have reached his friends before they died. He immediately starts healing them, but the knight stands back up. A piece of armor falls from their face, revealing the knight is a woman. She admits the attack hurt and promises to hurt Ken badly. Ken has no time to fight and carries his friends, intending to escape. The demons try to stop him, but the human soldiers cover his exit. Suzune opens her eyes and thanks Ken for saving them. The Black Knight continues chasing Ken and even throws her sword, which nearly hits them, but Ken manages to evade the attack. Ken stops, and Suzune explains that they couldn't damage the Black Knight, but somehow Ken's attack hurts the annoying knight. The knight catches up, promising to hurt Ken as he hurt her. Ken has no intention of fighting, but she's irritating him. He decides to engage while Suzune watches over Kazuki. As he charges, he realizes the knight's armor can morph, making it even more dangerous. The knight's attacks have no effect on Ken, surprising her. Ken notices her unexpected struggle and intensifies his punches. Frustrated, the knight tells Ken to die, but he reminds her that people don't just die because she says so. Kazuki regains consciousness, and Suzune tells him Ken healed them and is battling the scary Black Knight. None of the knight's reflection attacks work because Ken is constantly healing. Suzune wonders if the knight's weakness might be healing magic. They realize Ken isn't injuring the knight but making each attack incredibly painful. Suzune admits this is definitely the wrong way to use healing magic. The Black Knight becomes enraged that Ken has been toying with her and activates everything she has. Her aura becomes more terrifying, and her sword grows larger. This is meant to scare Ken, but he doesn't care about her intimidation. Ken and the knight charge at each other, creating a massive wave. Ken reaches his limit and overcomes the knight with healing magic. He breaks through her sword and delivers a finishing blow that goes right through her. Rose looks impressed watching from a distance. When everything clears, the Dark Knight has lost her armor and is vulnerable. She's a white-haired female demon, completely knocked out by Ken's attack. Ken calls his finishing move the ultimate healing punch. Realizing their best fighter is defeated, the demons retreat like rats. Suzune thanks Ken for saving them, certain they would have died without his help. She asks about his attack, and he explains Rose taught him this technique just before they separated. The method is simple. Imbue his fist with healing magic to heal the enemy while causing serious pain. It won't kill, but will definitely knock them out. Suzune and Ken are enjoying their success when soldiers arrive to inform them that the snake is still causing chaos. The heroes plan to finish this, and Ken wants to join them, but Rose appears to stop him. Ken nearly loses it when his master shows up. He even starts apologizing, explaining he had taken care of everything before her arrival. Rose tells Ken they need to return to camp and that he should let the heroes handle the snake. Ken tells his friends they better come back alive, and Suzune assures him they won't waste the lives he gave them. In the demons' camp, Amila and the others learn that the Black Knight has been captured, throwing them into total panic. Amila becomes even more frightened when she hears about another person as agile as Rose. She immediately realizes the battle is lost, as they haven't even faced Siglis and are already losing badly. She tells Hiriluk to call back the snake because it's time to retreat. Hiriluk is about to do this when he realizes the snake has been ambushed by the heroes. Working together, Suzune and Kazuki take down the slithering beast. Now in the infirmary, Rose tells Ken the enemy is retreating and asks if they're going to give chase, but she says no. She wants to avoid further casualties, knowing the demons are likely to attack again soon. Rose then begins to compliment Ken, letting him know the battle probably would have been lost if he hadn't saved the heroes. Hearing the praise, tears roll down Ken's eyes as he finally realizes his hard work wasn't in vain. Rose pats him on the head, and Ken thanks her for teaching him the right way to save people. Rose smiles proudly at Ken. He feels dizzy and passes out, but Rose catches him, realizing he's completely out of mana and stamina. She's glad he was able to hold out this long and can't be prouder of her stubborn student. After the battle, Ken is summoned to the castle where he is rewarded by the king for his brave efforts in winning the battle. Ken has never been in front of so many people before. This makes him nervous, but a smack from his master brings him back to his senses. He sits down to tell his ugly, fat pet Blurrin about how everything went. He is in the middle of this when Gommel arrives to tell him that his presence is needed at the castle again. While walking down the street, Ken is treated like a celebrity by the people, making things pretty awkward for him. Arriving at the castle, Aruku thanks him for his efforts in the war. He enters the throne room, and the king tells him they need his help regarding the Black Knight he captured. She has been cooperating during interrogations, which shows she is not loyal to the demon realm. However, they want to know certain things about the demon army that she is not yet revealing. She has insisted that seeing Ken will be the only way to make her cooperate. Ken agrees, and while heading to the basement, is escorted by Suzune, who claims she is there to protect him. Ken needs to remind her that the Black Knight literally beat her in battle. The Black Knight uses dark magic, but Ken's healing magic negates her powers. Ken then remembers that he dealt so much damage to the Knight's body, and she should have received medical treatment. Ken rushes to the cell to check on the Black Knight, who is now covered in her armor. Ken asks if she is fine, but she answers that she is used to pain. Nonetheless, Ken knows she must be suffering inside, and he tells Siglis to let him in. Siglis allows it, and Ken begins healing her. He continues until he reaches her face, soothing it, and forcing her to completely remove her armor. Tears run down her eyes as she tells Ken that she has never felt this way before. Later, Ken realizes he is about to go through another hellish training session when his master tells him he needs to learn how to dodge blows. He is used to receiving hits and healing himself, but his master wants him to evade attacks instead of letting them land. Rose prepares to punch him, but he starts running backward. She even tells him she will start light, but Ken wonders what kind of monster enjoys hitting her subordinates. The training begins, and Rose manages to land a punch that knocks him out completely. Ken wakes up to the same treatment all over again. This continues for 3 days, making his life miserable. On a free day, Ken decides to visit the Black Knight in her cell. He shares everything that happened, making the Black Knight wonder why he is doing this. She realizes she is becoming vulnerable around him and asks him to leave. As he is about to leave the castle, he runs into Kazuki, who is training in front of Celia. Ken can't believe this is what training looks like, given how his master has nearly killed him while claiming to be training him. Kazuki notices Ken's presence and pauses his training to talk. Celia tells Ken that the king now trusts him more than before, knowing the battle would have been lost without his brave intervention. Ken tries to act modest, saying he didn't do anything, but Kazuki interrupts. He is about to mention that he almost died, but remembers he is beside Celia and quickly stops himself. However, Celia already suspects something, and after Ken leaves, Kazuki finds himself undergoing intense questioning. Ken, meanwhile, wonders about the Black Knight's fate. She has given up all the information they wanted, and there is a possibility she might be executed. The Black Knight is in her cell when Rose shows up, leaving her completely surprised. Rose tells the lady that she has 2 options, and the Black Knight is already terrified. She knows Rose is far stronger than Ken, making her a very scary threat. Rose tells her she can either rot in jail or join her and be turned into an upright demon. Not that she really has a choice, since Rose has already made up her mind. Rose puts a magic tool around the Knight's neck to restrict her dark magic and prevent her from wearing her armor. The Knight starts wondering what Rose wants with her, but she'll find out if she's patient. Ken and Blurrin are jogging when he suddenly gets kicked by his menacing master. She reminds him he's supposed to be taking time off, and Ken wonders if that's enough reason for her to kick him. Just admit you're a monster who likes kicking and punching. Ken is shocked to see the Knight with Rose. Rose informs Ken that she plans to reform the lady and make her an errand runner for the rescue team. Rose is already having fun because this will be her first time training a demon. When the Knight wakes up, Ken offers his condolences, knowing the Knight is totally done for. Later that night, Rose tells Ken that the king plans to send him and the heroes to other nations to deliver messages. Ken wonders why he's been chosen alongside the heroes, and Rose lets him know that the king now trusts him to get the job done. She tells him to get ready before he's called upon. Ken decides to buy a book in town, and the bookseller apologizes for their previous behavior after the battle, explaining they were just excited and impressed by his performance. Unfortunately for Ken, he runs into Suzune again. While trying to navigate this problem, he sees the fox girl, who shows him a vision of Suzune and Kazuki dying on the battlefield. He rushes over to her, and to his surprise, she tells him it's time he repays her because she needs Ken to save her mother. The fox girl tells Ken that he is the only one she can rely on and introduces herself as Amako. She then demands a private conversation. Meanwhile, the Dark Knight is struggling with the brutal training imposed by Rose. She views the entire rescue unit as inhuman, believing no one could survive such rigorous training. She tries to rest on the floor, but a kick from Rose gives her the burst of energy she needs, and she immediately resumes training. Since Rose and the others are out training, Ken and Suzune decide to talk to Amako in the dormitory. Ken thanks her for saving his friends by showing him the vision. Amako explains that she has been searching for a healer, which is why she left the distant Beastkin territory, as only humans have healers. They ask why she didn't seek help from Orga or Ururu, who would surely have assisted her. She replies that they cannot fight, and she needs someone who can. When asked why she didn't approach Rose, she explains that she had already foreseen Rose refusing her request in a vision. Upon seeing Ken, she realized he was the one who would help her. Ken considers it and agrees to assist her. Since he is traveling to deliver messages, he can make a stop at the Beastkin territory. Ken needs to consult Rose about this. When he tells her, Rose is surprised to learn there is an oracle of time in their lands. She warns this might trigger a war with the Beastkins. However, Rose believes Ken can go to the Beastkin territory due to his upcoming journey. Ken returns to the room, and Amako already knows knows the outcome of his meeting with Rose. She thanks Ken before leaving for the day. That night, the Dark Knight struggles to eat due to the exhausting, life-threatening training. Ken tells her to eat, warning that she hasn't seen anything yet. She's just at the entrance of hell and hasn't even entered the fire. Her training continues, and by the 10th day, she seems to be improving. While passing through the forest, she hears a scream and pauses her training to investigate. It turns out Rose and Ken are doing their usual dodge-the-punch training. Given the hits Ken has taken, the Dark Knight believes he should be dead already. As the training continues, Ken manages to dodge one of Rose's punches, which excites him, but another punch immediately sends him flying into a tree. He doesn't mind though, considering it a win, since he finally dodged one of Rose's punches after days of training. The Dark Knight assumes Ken is no longer human, as he should have died by now. Rose then instructs the Dark Knight to continue her training under Ken. Ken and the Knight sit down to talk, and Ken declares his master is a complete monster. The Knight can only respond that Ken is becoming one himself. Ken finally asks for her name, and she replies that she is Felm. Immediately after learning her name, Ken runs away with Blurren, leaving Felm heartbroken. She had expected a long conversation, but he simply zooms off with his pet. She tries to chase after him, but ends up passing out. While having dinner, the rescue team suspects the guy has done something suspicious to the girl, but he claims his innocence. Ken talks badly about Rose, nearly getting himself into serious trouble. Later that night, Felm overhears Ken and Rose discussing his mission to deliver messages. The next morning, Felm packs her bags and leaves the dormitory. In the throne room, the king thanks Amako for her help and tells Ken that Welsi will provide the remaining information. Ken will visit the city of magic, Lukvist, the nation of prayer, Samariarl, the nation of water, Myalark, and finally the Beastkin territory. Kazuki and Suzune will accompany him to Lukvist before parting ways. Ken will travel with his attending knights, but too many knights might raise suspicion. He decides to take 2 knights of his choosing. He selects Aruku as the first knight, which is a significant honor for Aruku. For the second knight, Ken chooses his pet, Blurren. Meanwhile, Rose catches up with Felm, knowing she overheard the conversation about messages. Rose believes Felm might inform the demons, but realizes she's actually hiding in the woods to join Ken's journey. Felm is worried about Ken, but Rose assures her that he's tough and won't be easily hurt. Rose has another plan for Felm, but first, they need to return to the dormitory. That evening, Ken and Felm say their goodbyes. Felm tries to hide her true feelings. Rose gives Ken aggressive advice, telling him to fight anyone who claims other magic is better than healing magic. She knows this journey will change him and wishes him luck, essentially turning him into a hero. Ken deeply admires Rose and is grateful to have her as his master. The next day, the heroes and Ken begin their journey. Rose takes Felm to start her training, sending her into a challenging experience.